we need to talk about something unfolding across this country right now, and it's happening faster than most people realize. Over 7,000 fast food locations have gone dark in just the last few years. Not decades, years. And today, we're breaking down 15 chains that are actively hemorrhaging restaurants as we speak. But this isn't a dry corporate earnings report. This is something you can see with your own eyes. Take a drive through your town tonight. Go ahead. Look at the strip malls you pass every single day without thinking. Notice anything different? The parking lot at that chicken place, the one that used to have cars spilling out onto the road during dinner rush, it's half empty now. That drive-through lane where you once sat idling for 15 minutes because every family in the neighborhood had the same Friday night idea? Gone. No line, no wait, no customers. And the restaurants themselves, some of them sit there like abandoned monuments. Lights off, windows papered over, a commercial leasing sign bolted to the door where a menu board used to hang. These chains are not collapsing for identical reasons, but when you pull back and examine the full picture, a deeply unsettling pattern emerges, and it forces one unavoidable question. What is actually happening to the brands that millions of American families once treated as permanent fixtures of daily life? Let's get into it. Number 15, KFC. Here's a number that should stop you in your tracks. $50. That is what a growing number of families report spending on a single dinner run to KFC. And for a brand that built its entire empire on the promise of affordable, no-hassle family meals, that figure represents something close to an identity crisis. Think about what KFC used to mean. You were driving home after a brutal day. Nobody had the energy to stand over a stove, so you swung through the drive-thru, grabbed a bucket and some sides, and dinner was handled. It required zero planning. The price barely registered. That frictionless simplicity is what turned KFC into one of the most iconic restaurant brands on the planet for generations. But here's what shifted, and it's critical to understand this. Americans did not suddenly develop an aversion to fried chicken. The product didn't become controversial. What happened is far more dangerous for the brand. Customers started doing math. They started weighing what lands on the tray against the number flashing on the screen, and concluding, quietly, without drama, that the equation no longer balances. The complaints have become remarkably uniform. Prices climbing, portions shrinking, a total that stings more than it used to. These aren't viral rants from professional critics. These are ordinary families articulating a gut feeling: this meal doesn't deliver what it once did. And the competitive landscape has turned brutal. Chick-fil-A continues to operate with almost machine-like consistency, pulling customers away with reliability alone. Popeyes is aggressively expanding, carving deeper into the fried chicken category every quarter. Independent chicken joints in cities and suburbs alike are winning over diners who want bigger portions, bolder flavors, and a better deal. Under that relentless pressure, KFC has been forced to contract. Hundreds of underperforming locations have been shuttered in recent years, particularly in markets where the brand's grip has weakened most. In some regions, entire clusters of KFC restaurants have vanished within months. Shopping centers that once featured a KFC as an anchor tenant are now leasing those spaces to competitors or letting them sit vacant. Franchise operators who once viewed KFC as a guaranteed revenue stream are now questioning whether the brand's trajectory warrants continued investment. And that's what makes this so alarming. We're not talking about some obscure regional outfit. KFC is a global titan, but titans fall the same way everyone else does, not through some catastrophic explosion, but through a million quiet individual decisions. A family standing at the counter, scanning the prices, glancing at each other, and saying, you know what, let's just cook tonight. Multiply that moment by millions, and you get exactly what we're witnessing. One of the world's biggest fast food brands slowly losing ground, one empty parking space at a time. Number 14, Subway. If there is one lesson every business on this planet should internalize, it is this: you can survive losing customers. You cannot survive losing their trust. And that distinction sits at the very core of Subway's unraveling. At its absolute zenith, Subway commanded nearly 27,000 locations across the United States, more than any other fast food operation in existence. It had effectively colonized every gas station, strip mall, shopping center, and highway exit in the country. And the pitch was elegant in its simplicity. Fresh ingredients, built in front of your eyes, faster and healthier than the burger joints next door. For years, that formula was bulletproof. People grabbed Subway for lunch almost on autopilot. It was convenient, predictable, and carried that veneer of being the sensible choice. But something corroded beneath the surface. The consistency evaporated. One location would pile the sandwich high. The next would hand you something that looked like it had been assembled during an earthquake. Bread quality fluctuated. Ingredient freshness became a coin flip. And then came a cascade of public controversies surrounding the brand's products and corporate image, each one scraping away another thin layer of consumer confidence. Meanwhile, competitors smelled blood. Jersey Mike's has been expanding at a staggering pace, offering a premium sub experience that makes Subway's offerings look anemic by comparison. Local delis and sandwich shops are thriving by doing one thing Subway can no longer guarantee: delivering the same quality every single time. The consequences have been devastating. Thousands upon thousands of Subway locations have permanently closed over the past decade as the company desperately restructures its bloated franchise network. The footprint that once dwarfed every competitor is shrinking at a pace that would have been unthinkable 10 years ago. Entire plazas that once housed 2 or 3 Subway locations within a few miles of each other now have none. Franchise owners who invested their life savings into the brand have watched their businesses disintegrate under the weight of declining foot traffic and corporate missteps. The sale of Subway to Roar Capital was supposed to signal a fresh chapter, but for the thousands of operators who already lost everything, that reset came far too late. And here's the part that should haunt every brand executive reading this. Most Subway loyalists didn't leave because a competitor seduced them with a better sandwich. They left because they no longer knew what they were going to get when they walked through the door. Familiarity was Subway's greatest asset. The moment that familiarity became uncertainty, everything unraveled. Number 13. Domino's. There is no food on earth that delivers a faster verdict than pizza. You carry the box inside, you flip open the lid, and within 3 seconds, you know whether you'll ever order from that place again. That instant, unforgiving judgment is now creating serious problems for Domino's. For years, Domino's owned the convenience argument. Nobody wanted to cook, the app was easy, and 30 minutes later a pizza showed up at your door. Done. It was the default option for millions of households on any given weeknight. But defaults get challenged when the product stops matching the memory, and what customers are reporting with increasing frequency sounds eerily consistent. Crusts that feel thinner than they remember, toppings that seem sparser, delivery surcharges that inflate the final bill well beyond what feels reasonable, and orders that occasionally arrive looking nothing like the picture on the screen. Now, let's be clear about scale here. Domino's still commands over 21,000 locations worldwide. This is one of the largest pizza operations in human history. But even empires crack. During recent restructuring initiatives, more than 800 Domino's locations were shuttered or ceased operations across multiple markets as the company scrambled to tighten efficiency. Little Caesars keeps pulling price-conscious customers away with its aggressively low price points. Independent pizzerias are building fierce local loyalty by delivering a product that speaks for itself the instant the box opens. And that's Domino's most dangerous vulnerability. Not its technology, not its delivery infrastructure, but the widening gap between what customers expect and what they actually receive when they lift that cardboard lid. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, take 1 second to drop a like, leave a comment with your own experience, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Now let's keep going. Number 12. Red Lobster. This one sent shockwaves through the industry, and frankly, it should have. Red Lobster, a name that for decades was synonymous with accessible seafood dining in America, filed for bankruptcy protection and began rapidly closing locations across the country. We're talking about dozens of restaurants going dark almost overnight. For generations, Red Lobster occupied a unique space. It was the place where working class and middle class families went to celebrate. Birthdays, anniversaries, graduations. Those Cheddar Bay biscuits weren't just a side item, they were practically a cultural institution. But the economics turned vicious. Seafood costs surged, labor expenses climbed, and the brand found itself caught in a no man's land. Too expensive to function as casual dining, not elevated enough to compete with actual seafood restaurants. Customers who once viewed Red Lobster as a treat increasingly found that the bill for a family dinner rivaled restaurants offering a dramatically superior experience. The all-you-can-eat shrimp promotion, once a brilliant traffic driver, reportedly became a financial catastrophe, drawing crowds but hemorrhaging money on every plate served. When the very promotions designed to save you begin accelerating your decline, the situation has become structurally broken. Red Lobster's collapse isn't just a business story, it's a cultural marker. It signals that even deeply embedded American dining traditions can vanish with stunning speed when the value proposition collapses. Communities that relied on Red Lobster as one of the few sit-down restaurant options in their area suddenly found themselves with nothing, an empty building and a parking lot full of memories. For many families, Especially in smaller towns, Red Lobster wasn't competing with high-end seafood restaurants. It was the only seafood restaurant. And its disappearance didn't just remove a dining option, it removed a gathering place, a celebration venue, and a piece of the community's social fabric. Number 11. Arby's. Here's a question that should genuinely trouble the executives at Inspire Brands. When was the last time you made a deliberate decision to eat at Arby's? Not because you happened to spot one while driving and thought, sure, why not? But a conscious, intentional choice. Tonight, we're getting Arby's. That silence, that pause before you can answer, tells you everything about where this brand stands right now. Arby's carved out a distinctive position decades ago. While every other chain chased the burger customer, Arby's planted its flag in roast beef. We have the meats. It was memorable, it was different, and it powered expansion to over 3,400 locations nationwide. But differentiation only protects you as long as people actively think about you. And Arby's has drifted into something far more lethal than controversy or scandal. It's drifted into irrelevance. Customers aren't boycotting the brand. They aren't posting angry reviews. They've simply stopped considering it as an option when deciding where to eat. It doesn't enter the mental rotation anymore. Same-store sales have slid for consecutive years. When a sandwich combo with fries and a drink starts approaching the cost of a legitimate sit-down meal at a local restaurant, the calculus shifts dramatically. Roughly 200 locations have been closed or eliminated during recent restructuring, as the parent company audits underperforming units. And that's the most sobering dimension of this story. A brand that people actively dislike can fight back. It can rebrand, reformulate, launch a comeback campaign. But a brand that people simply forget, that's a far deeper hole to climb out of. Number 10. Hooters. Some brands don't lose their current customers first. They lose the next generation first. And by the time anyone notices, the damage is already irreversible. That is precisely the crisis engulfing Hooters right now. At its peak, Hooters operated north of 430 locations. It was a cultural fixture, the place to watch the game, demolish a plate of wings, and decompress after work. For an entire generation, the brand was as familiar as any major chain in the country. But the generation that built Hooters is aging, and the generation behind them simply isn't walking through those doors. The reasons are cultural, behavioral, and frankly, structural. The way younger Americans socialize, choose restaurants, and spend disposable income has fundamentally transformed. What once made Hooters distinctive now registers as dated, or worse, invisible, to the demographic every restaurant chain desperately needs. The numbers are stark. From over 430 locations, the chain has contracted to fewer than 300 domestic restaurants. Same-store sales have declined across multiple consecutive years. Entire states have watched their last Hooters location go dark permanently. This isn't a story about wings or sports bars. This is a story about generational relevance. And what happens to a brand that was perfectly calibrated for one era when that era ends and nothing replaces the connection? Number 9. Denny's. America's diner is in serious trouble. Denny's, the chain that literally never closed, the 24-hour refuge for late-night travelers, post-bar crowds, and early-morning regulars, has been steadily shuttering locations at a pace that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. For years, Denny's occupied a uniquely resilient position. It wasn't trendy, it wasn't trying to be. It was just there, reliably, permanently, at every highway exit and in every mid-sized town. The Grand Slam breakfast wasn't just a menu item, it was an American ritual. But the economics of operating a full-service diner around the clock have become punishing. Labor costs have surged. Late-night traffic has evaporated in many markets as delivery apps keep people home. And the younger demographic that once stumbled into Denny's at 2 a.m. now orders through their phones without leaving the couch. Hundreds of Denny's locations have closed in recent years, and the company has publicly acknowledged that further contraction is likely as it evaluates underperforming units. Entire corridors of highway exits that once guaranteed a Denny's sign glowing in the darkness now offer nothing but closed doors and darkened windows. The truck drivers, the night shift nurses, the college students who once depended on that 3 a.m. refuge are being forced to find alternatives or go without. The brand that promised to always be open is discovering a brutal truth. Always being open doesn't matter if nobody walks through the door. And for a chain whose entire identity was built on permanence and availability, the sight of locked Denny's locations represents something that cuts deeper than any quarterly earnings miss ever could. Quick reminder, if this is hitting close to home, smash that like button, share your story in the comments, and subscribe for more. We're just getting to the most painful part of this list. Number 8. Papa Murphy's. Someone once told me something that crystallized Papa Murphy's entire dilemma in a single sentence. I just paid for dinner and I still have to go home and cook it. That observation is devastating because it's true, and because it captures exactly why this brand's once brilliant model has become a liability. The take and bake concept was genuinely innovative when it launched. Select your pizza, bring it home, slide it in the oven, and 20 minutes later, you've got a hot, fresh pie straight from your own kitchen. No preservatives, no heat lamps, no reheating. The model propelled Papa Murphy's past 1,500 locations and made it one of the largest pizza chains in the nation. But American expectations around convenience have shifted at warp speed. After an exhausting day, the modern consumer doesn't want to buy food that still requires 20 minutes of active participation. They want to open a box and eat, period. If they're going to operate an oven, they'd rather cook something from scratch, or simply tap an app and have a finished pizza appear at their door. Papa Murphy's found itself marooned in a strategic no man's land, not as convenient as delivery, not cheap enough to dominate on price. The unique selling proposition that once separated it from every competitor became the exact friction point driving customers away. From that 1,500 location peak, the chain has contracted to approximately 1,100 stores. Franchise operators have exited the system in waves as customer traffic continued to deteriorate across market after market. The pizza itself still earns praise. Fresh dough, quality toppings, genuinely good flavor. But in a world where convenience is king, asking customers to finish cooking their own dinner has become an increasingly impossible ask. Number 7. Firehouse Subs. I still love that place. I just can't justify going there anymore. That sentiment, expressed to me by a neighbor outside a Firehouse Subs location not long ago, might be the most dangerous thing any brand can hear. Because it means the affection is still alive. The willingness to spend is what died. Firehouse Subs built something rare in the fast food landscape. Genuine emotional connection. The firefighter helmets mounted on the walls. The framed photos of local first responders. The origin story of two firefighter brothers who turned their passion into a national chain. That narrative propelled the brand past 1,200 locations and cultivated a customer base that felt more like a community than a consumer demographic. But emotional loyalty has a ceiling, and that ceiling is defined by the number on the receipt. A sandwich combo at many Firehouse locations now approaches $17. And at that price point, something shifts in the customer's brain. The comparison stops being Firehouse versus other sandwich chains. It becomes Firehouse versus an actual sit-down restaurant. Firehouse versus cooking at home. Firehouse versus literally any alternative that delivers more food for less money. Jersey Mike's is expanding like wildfire, offering a comparable product with aggressive value positioning. Local sandwich shops are competing harder than ever, winning customers with larger portions and lower prices. Following acquisition by Restaurant Brands International, Firehouse has been scrutinizing its franchise network intensely, and weaker performing locations have been closing or departing the system as traffic trends deteriorate. The tragedy here is that most former Firehouse regulars don't want the brand to disappear. They genuinely admire what it represents. But admiration doesn't pay the bill. And when a loyal customer starts asking, is this sandwich really worth $17? With increasing frequency, the answer eventually changes. And it changes permanently. Number 6. Moe's Southwest Grill. Welcome to Moe's. If you've set foot in one of these restaurants even once, that explosive greeting is probably permanently seared into your memory. The entire crew behind the counter erupting in unison the moment you crossed the threshold. It was theatrical. It was fun. And it was brilliantly effective at making every customer feel like the most important person in the room. Combined with complimentary tortilla chips, a salsa bar overflowing with options, and burritos so overstuffed they required structural engineering to hold together, that formula launched Moe's past 700 locations and positioned it as one of the few chains capable of genuinely competing with Chipotle. But here's what's been filtering through with alarming consistency lately. This place just isn't what it used to be. Portions have visibly contracted. The salsa bar has been scaled back. A burrito with a drink now regularly exceeds $15. And when prices climb, customers don't just notice the total. They start scrutinizing every element of the experience with forensic precision. And when that scrutiny reveals less food, fewer options, and a diminished atmosphere, the verdict comes fast. While Chipotle has rocketed past 3,700 domestic restaurants, Moe's has contracted from over 700 locations to roughly 500 after successive rounds of closures and organizational restructuring. The brand that was built on generosity, on making customers feel like they were getting more than they paid for, is now generating the opposite perception. And that inversion is fatal, because people don't remember Moe's for the burritos, they remember the feeling. And when a brand built entirely around making people feel welcome starts making them feel shortchanged, the silence that follows is deafening. Enjoying this deep dive? Do me a quick favor. Hit like, tell me in the comments which chain you think is in the worst shape, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's keep moving. Number 5. Applebee's. Eaten good in the neighborhood hasn't aged particularly well when the neighborhood has moved on. Applebee's, once the undisputed king of casual chain dining, has been fighting a slow-motion retreat for years, and the closures keep accelerating. The brand thrived during an era when casual dining chains essentially were the American restaurant scene for huge swaths of the country. In towns without a robust, independent restaurant culture, Applebee's was where you went for date night, family birthdays, and weeknight dinners when nobody felt like cooking. At its peak, the chain operated well over 2,000 locations. But the world Applebee's was built for has fractured. Younger diners gravitate toward local independent restaurants with unique identities. Delivery apps have made staying home feel like dining out. And when an Applebee's dinner for two, with drinks and tip, can easily breach $60, the value proposition implodes. Because customers can get a genuinely memorable meal at an independent restaurant for the same price, or a perfectly adequate one delivered to their couch for half. The company has closed hundreds of locations over recent years, and additional contractions remain on the table. Promotional strategies like dollar drinks and half-price appetizers have generated temporary traffic spikes, but they haven't reversed the structural erosion. You can't discount your way out of an identity crisis. When the core question customers are asking is, why would I eat here instead of literally anywhere else? No happy hour special can provide a satisfying answer. The fundamental challenge is existential. Applebee's was designed to serve a market that is actively disappearing. The middle ground between fast food and fine dining, the territory casual chains dominated for decades, is being squeezed from both directions simultaneously. Fast casual concepts like Chipotle and Panera offer comparable food without the wait for a server. Independent restaurants offer a genuine experience at a similar price point. And delivery apps make staying home feel like the smartest option of all. Applebee's finds itself stranded in a no man's land, with shrinking real estate and fewer reasons for anyone to visit. Number 4. Hardee's. 5:30 in the morning. The sky is still dark. A pickup truck eases into the parking lot at Hardee's. Construction workers, long-haul truckers, farmers, shift workers, people whose days start before the sun comes up. For decades, that was the rhythm at Hardee's locations across small-town America. These weren't customers chasing the latest food trend. They wanted hot biscuits, strong coffee, and a meal they could count on before grinding through a 12-hour day. That reliability is what built Hardee's to nearly 3,000 locations. But reliability is precisely what's disintegrating. The complaints arriving now paint a picture of operational decay that should alarm anyone invested in this brand. Drive-through waits stretching to 20 minutes with only 3 cars in line. Milkshake machines perpetually out of service. Menu items unavailable with no explanation. The fundamental machinery of a fast food operation, speed, consistency, availability, is breaking down at location after location. Layer on top of that a burger combo approaching $14 to $15, and the equation collapses. When the price climbs but the experience deteriorates, customer patience doesn't erode gradually. It snaps. The Hardee's system now operates approximately 1,600 locations, a precipitous decline from peak years. Multiple major franchise operators have entered bankruptcy proceedings, triggering cascading closures across numerous states. The brand isn't being killed by some external disruption or cultural shift. It's being killed by its own execution failures, by thousands of small, repeated disappointments that collectively teach customers to pull into the parking lot next door instead. Number 3. Bojangles. It's Bo time. In North Carolina, Georgia, and across the southeastern United States, that phrase carries almost tribal significance. Bojangles was never merely a fried chicken chain. It functioned as a regional institution, as deeply embedded in Southern identity as college football and sweet tea. The Cajun-seasoned chicken had a kick you couldn't replicate anywhere else. The biscuits, made from scratch every morning, were legendary. The brand's personality was unmistakably, unapologetically Southern. That identity powered Bojangles past 800 locations. But identity is a double-edged weapon. When customers start saying, "It's just not the same anymore," about a brand they consider part of their cultural DNA, The damage resonates on a level that transcends ordinary business metrics. And that's exactly what's happening. As Bojangles pushed beyond its southeastern stronghold, consistency fractured. Longtime devotees report that the chicken has lost its signature boldness. The biscuits, the actual cornerstone of the brand's reputation, don't feel as special. The soul of the operation seems to be diluting as the footprint expands. Simultaneously, Popeyes and Chick-fil-A are waging aggressive campaigns in Bojangles' home markets, offering their own compelling versions of the Southern chicken experience with massive corporate resources behind them. Bojangles still operates north of 800 locations, but expansion into new markets has stumbled badly, with closures and operational pullbacks in territories that failed to gain traction. For a brand whose power derived entirely from regional authenticity, the question isn't whether the chicken is still good. The question is whether the soul of the brand can survive being stretched across geography it was never designed to cover. We're approaching the top of this list, and these final entries are arguably the most telling. If this content is resonating with you, take a moment to like, comment with your thoughts, and subscribe. Every interaction helps more people see this. Now, the final two. Number 2, TGI Fridays, Friday night. The shopping center parking lot is active. People are out. They want dinner, drinks, human connection. But something has fundamentally shifted in where those people are going. And increasingly, it's not TGI Fridays. The brand's name was its manifesto. Thank God it's Friday. It promised a destination, the place where the work week ended and the weekend officially began. Meet your friends, order some appetizers, grab a cocktail, and decompress. That promise built an international empire exceeding 600 restaurants. But the experience TGI Fridays sells was engineered for a different America, when dinner, drinks, and a tip routinely push past $35 to $40 per person. Customers, particularly younger ones, start interrogating whether a chain restaurant with a formulaic atmosphere is really where they want to spend that money. And the answer, with mounting frequency, is no. They'd rather try the new craft cocktail bar downtown. They'd rather support the local Thai place that just opened. They'd rather order delivery and eat on the couch. The financial reckoning has been savage. From that 600-plus restaurant peak, TGI Fridays has contracted dramatically after wave upon wave of closures. Dozens of locations across major states shuttered in a single year. The pressure became so overwhelming that the company entered Chapter 11 bankruptcy restructuring, a formal acknowledgement that the current model cannot sustain itself. And there's something almost poetically cruel about this situation. People haven't stopped wanting Friday nights. They haven't stopped craving connection and celebration. They've simply decided, en masse, without coordination, through millions of individual choices, that TGI Fridays is no longer where those moments happen. For a brand whose entire identity is Friday night, that rejection is existential. Number 1, Steak and Shake. This is the one that genuinely haunts me, because the decline of Steak and Shake isn't really a business story. It's a human story, and it distills everything on today's list into one devastating image. Last week, a man, looked to be in his 70s, stood in front of a self-service kiosk at a Steak and Shake. He stared at the screen. He looked around the empty dining room. Then he turned to no one in particular and asked, "Does anybody still take orders the old way?" That question contains multitudes. Steak and Shake was never primarily about the burgers and milkshakes, though both were excellent. It was about the experience of being served. You sat down at a table or a counter. A server came over, maybe someone who'd been working there for years and knew your usual order. You were treated like a guest, like a person. That warmth, that human friction, was the product. And then, in the relentless pursuit of cost reduction, management systematically stripped it all away. Table service was eliminated at location after location. Self-order kiosks replaced human interaction. Customers now place their own orders, pay at a screen, and retrieve their own food. The restaurant didn't change its name. It didn't change its menu, but it changed its soul. One comment that surfaced online captured the wound perfectly. "I don't miss the burgers. I miss the people." That distinction matters enormously. Customers aren't leaving because the food deteriorated. They're leaving because the place no longer feels like the place they remember. The warmth is gone. The familiarity evaporated. What remains is a shell wearing the skin of something that used to mean something. From over 600 locations, at its peak, Steak and Shake now operates roughly half that number. Hundreds of restaurants have closed or exited the franchise system during years of brutal ongoing restructuring. The contraction shows no signs of stabilizing. The irony is almost unbearable. The very technology that was supposed to make the operation more efficient, the kiosks, the automated ordering, the removal of human labor from the equation, ended up destroying the one thing that actually kept customers loyal. The savings went to the balance sheet, the cost was paid by the customer experience. And customers noticed. They always notice. And in many ways, this is the perfect story to close on, because Steak 'n Shake's decline is a mirror held up to every single brand on today's list. In an age of automation, optimization, and algorithmic efficiency, an enormous number of human beings still choose where to eat based on something no spreadsheet can capture. The feeling of being acknowledged. A greeting. A smile. The sense that you matter to the place you're giving your money to. When that disappears, no kiosk, no app, no cost savings can replace it. And the customers, quietly, without fanfare, simply stop coming. The bigger picture. Step back from the individual stories for a moment and look at the full landscape we've just surveyed. The pattern is unmistakable, and it's accelerating. Americans haven't stopped eating pizza, they haven't abandoned sandwiches, fried chicken consumption isn't declining, people still desperately want a place to meet friends on Friday night. The fundamental desires that built every single brand on this list remain fully intact. What has shattered is the assumption that these particular brands are entitled to fulfill those desires. Some chains are hemorrhaging their identity, stretching beyond the markets and the values that made them distinctive. Some have severed the emotional connection with their customers, replacing warmth with automation and loyalty with indifference. Some are simply being outperformed by hungrier, nimbler competitors who deliver more food, better quality, and a superior experience at the same price point.